What makes a person of interest? Coach Michael Burt cuts to the chase, interviewing some of the biggest names in the world. How do they think? What makes them tick? What are their thought processes? And how they became a person of interest.
Hey guys, I'm Coach Michael Burt, the Super Coach. Every week coming into your life with different podcasts, different concepts. Several years ago, as you know, I wrote a book called Person of Interest. Out of the 12 books that I've written, actually, this has been one of the most interesting concepts that I've ever come up with. And a person of interest is the go-to person. A person of interest is a person other people can't live without. They're must-haves versus nice-to-haves. And so as I've been speaking out in the world over the last couple of weeks, I thought, man, it's time to revive this podcast. I know a lot of people of interest. I just got back from 10X speaking and spending time with a lot of people of interest. I was interested in their mind share. I was interested in how they think, how they operate, how they maneuver about the world, how they structure big deals, how they become people of interest. So I got to spend some time with our guest today, which is Gary Cardone. And I first was acclimated with Gary Cardone through his brother, Grant Cardone. Grant and I have been friends for several years. And Gary did a show called Confessions of an Entrepreneur with Grant. And I watched that show, and I text Grant. I said, man, that's the best confessions that I've seen out of anybody you had. And hey, I was one of those. I said it was a lot better than mine, but man, Gary Cardone has lived a very interesting life. He's hung around fascinating people. He's lived in fascinating places. He's done fascinating things. He's figured out how to make fascinating money. And so he's got this mystique about him. He's lived in London and other countries. I mean, he's just a cool person. So Gary, welcome to Person of Interest, man. I think a lot of our guests are going to be excited about hearing from you.
Thank you, Coach. Great to see you again.
You got a good energy about you. You got a good spirit about you. You got a good clarity about you. I want to go back just a little bit. Tell a little bit about your story, because you and Grant are identical twins. You've went different paths in your life, but and both of you have done fascinating things. And I keep thinking about what you learned from your father, because there had to be something you picked up there that instilled this drive and hunger and prey drive in you. I mean, go back to the early days and talk a little bit about that for the listener, because you two guys have got a big engine, man. It had to come from somewhere.
Yeah. It's really interesting. If you look at the whole dynamics of my family, if you met my sisters, you wouldn't even think we were related. In fact, you did meet one of my sisters.
That's right.
I love my sister. I'm not saying anything, but just her psychology, her spirituality, whatever, it seems to be more nervous, less risk-taking. So Grant and I's father died when we were 8, and that's the only big pivot, that continuum of between my older brother and my older sisters. They had a lot of time from the family. Mm-hmm. Grant and I lost our dad at 8, and you can tell you don't have to graph it. Our behavior changed within 18 months. We started getting into trouble. Just a lot of things began to fall apart. And it wasn't because my mother wasn't a good mother. My mother was a really good Sicilian woman who never, ever had any interest in breaking out of this feminist thing. She had no confusion over her role whatsoever. Mm-hmm. She served us 3 meals a day. And was proud of that role. And so grew up, really low middle class. I mean, we weren't starving, but we didn't have a lot. And I think that, I don't know. I don't know. What I do know is that it's kind of hard. I could see if Grant was really successful, but having 2 guys really successful and taking really, really, really different paths in life, there's something in that DNA, that gene pool, or the universe that we were gifted with. And I really believe that it's a gift. Now the challenge is, I think everyone has the gift. You have the gift. Everyone listening to this deal has the gift. My staff here, I've got about 120 people in Tampa. They all have the gift. The difference between the people that are really, really winning is those people embrace their gift. They found it, and they're not denying it. And most people don't ever find the gift, and whatever that gift is. Some people have multiple gifts, but I think that is the deal. And so the gift for me is, like, I didn't earn this. I'm earning it. I keep it because I keep using it, but I didn't earn it. Like, I didn't do anything. I think a whole set of things occurred to make this compound the way it is. And this compound doesn't work in some places. Like I was never, ever going to be able to make it in General Electric. And I knew that. At 27 years old, I knew I will never, my persona, I can do one of two things. I can either become a chameleon like 98% of all of the corporate people, become robots, and adapt my personality to the IBM white t-shirt or the white shirt. Remember when they forced people to wear white shirts and the blue tie? I think it was blue tie. Or I can embrace my persona as a rogue player, a I just don't fit in the bucket where 90% of the people fit. Or I can just become myself and find an environment that allows me to expand my muscles and my skills. Like if I'm a great basketball player, I'm probably not going to go sign up for a football team. Right? So, why would you do that? I mean, there's been a lot of professional athletes that have tried that and hadn't worked well. So, look, Grant was going to be the entrepreneur for his whole life. At the age of 21, I left the house. I left Lake Charles, Louisiana. I had to get out of that small environment. It was too small for me. And that meant I had to get out of my comfort zone. And I think that if this video goes dead right now, the great lesson in my life is punch out of your comfort zone. When you get comfortable, you should actually be figuring out, how do I get really, really uncomfortable? And my whole business strategy in the last 20 years, I get very comfortable in a space. I got a young guy, 30 years old, working for me right now. I give him that business. I teach it to him. And then they push me up into the food chain to go into a more uncomfortable environment because I'm really good at that piece. And some people are good at it and some people aren't. So I don't know that I have your answer. A lot of hard work, man. Fear, insecurity, all those things that people complain about, they drive me.
Yeah.
And that's what I heard at 10X the other day, because I hadn't been to one of those shows in a long time, was that how many successful people talk about being scared.
Yeah.
And most people who look at me, they look at me and they go, that guy doesn't have a nervous bone in his body.
Right.
I walked in front of 9,000 people and gave a speech like you did. For me, it was like 9 people, 90 people, 9,000. Why would I make a big deal out of some more zeros?
Right.
It does. I'm more probably nervous doing this than I was in front of the 9,000 people.
Where you have a contagious confidence about you. You do have a confidence about you, a swag about you. Was that always there? I mean, I know the fear's there, but somewhere along the way you crossed over to where the fears become a confidence, because you will go to another country. You will go to places. I mean, you really do things a lot of people go, well, man, I would never do that. I mean, Gary Cardone did it, but I wouldn't do it. Like, where did that initial piece come from?
It's paid me massive dividends. I tried it once and I won the lottery. So here's a great story. The first time I did it with any kind of real, as a data point that other people can grab onto, was I was working for a very entrepreneurial company. I knew I had to work for these people. It wasn't a question of what they were going to pay me. It was, I need to work for these two men. Being employed there 6 months, I found one of their buddies. In fact, I hired a guy and I said, hey, let's go jump out of an airplane. It was his idea. Hey, let's go jump out of an airplane in Texas. And I said, I'll do it under one condition. I jump out of the airplane by myself. I will not get on someone's back and have them control the rip cord. To me, that's insane. Let me pull my own rip cord, okay? So I paid 2 guys extra to fly next to me. And if something critical happened, they were going to yank my chain. My career exploded the next day. And the whole concept of jumping out of an airplane is about this, okay? Everybody thinks it's about jumping out of the airplane. It is not. The critical moment is that microsecond when you choose to let go of everything that you know is real and comfortable and gravity and safe, even though it might be a little cold up there and windy. Man, being in a rickety plane at 22,000 feet is a hell of a lot better than flying at 120,000 feet when you don't even know if you lit 120 miles an hour, when you don't really even remember how to pull the car, right? So letting go was my willingness to say to the universe that I trusted the universe and that I trusted myself. But like, I'm trusting both, not just me, the whole deal.
Yes.
And I lived through it. Did a decent job. It was a really good experience. My career took off. The next one was our company had exploded. And I wrote down, I realized, and I think enough people don't do this, is I realized that the guys that I was working for, I'd been there 3 years, they were all my age, 28, 28, 28, a bunch of junky adrenaline people, extremely real smart guys. And I realized, you know what, I will never make it. These are all my bosses, and they're not going to die tomorrow. I won't make it here. I had been really, really aggressive in my younger life, what you call swaggy. Mm-hmm. Cool. Back then, ExxonMobil, Amoco, those guys said, hey, the guy's arrogant. See the judgment there, because I didn't have any success. I was making 60 grand a year, and it was arrogant. Now you make, 40, 30, $50 million, and it's all of a sudden, hey, you got swagger, man. It's not even arrogant. So it's really a perception of the player. I've never actually felt arrogant, but most of the people that meet me would use that term, and it really beat me up for 20 years. And so I started like, oh, I can't be arrogant. I can't be this. I can't be that. Being humble and acting and pretending like I'm a Volkswagen when I'm a Ferrari has never, ever worked for me.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah. So I don't know where the swagger comes from. I know that every time I've taken a risk, it's paid off.
Yeah.
And this burning the bridge deal for me has always been a big deal. I mean, I've been divorced. Like, I don't do divorces the way other people do it. I make a payment and I'm down the road. I'm done. I'm done with the connection. I'm like, I don't want to make payments. I want to, here's yours, here's mine. Let's move on. Let's burn the bridge. I love you. Peace, love. Hope you find a great guy. I'm clearly not it.
Yeah. And
then you just move on. It's just another deal, right? I mean, it is. It's another deal.
So when you think about it,
that sounds nice to some. However,
when you think about, all right, so I've got on my notes here these inflection points, because you've done a little bit of everything. I mean, I heard the show I listened to, you sold bananas for a period of time. You've done.
That's not really true. I haven't done I've done extremely concentrated activities in really large industries. The banana thing was because I got fired.
Yeah.
And I was screamed, and I just had to go make some money, man.
Yes.
I mean, you got people on this podcast right now. We're making $200 grand a year yesterday, and they don't want to go to work for 7-Eleven. Let me tell you something. If I'm unemployed tomorrow morning, I will no problem go work at 7-Eleven. Yeah. I found this bizarre that the job's too below you. Come on, there's no job too below me.
Yeah.
Well, $8 is a heck of a lot better than 800 zero.
I think that's a great point, because I have seen broke people, and I said, look, I'll give you $2,000 a month to do this one task for me. And they say, well, $2,000, I don't know if I can do it or not. It's really below what I think my value is. There is no value right here. Right now, you're broke.
You got zero right now.
Yeah. So the mindset, I can't get my mind around that. So let's talk about inflection points. Yes. And what I mean by that is there's people out there looking at you going, okay, he's Gary Cardone. He's been involved in a lot of big deals. Name 3 or 4 of the big. I mean, obviously going to work for those 2 guys was an inflection point for you, right? I mean, that was a game changer. What I heard you say –
almost brought me 3 times.
Yeah, what I heard you say is you got to – there's certain people you need to go work for. You need to learn under. You need to mentor under. You need to go for the mentor maybe over the money initially until you learn how to do it. Give me 2 or 3 of those big inflection points.
Yeah, so the first one, when I was 27, I was working for a Fortune 50 company, big oil company in Texas. Everyone would know their name. I worked for 3 people who literally, if I was a politician and a Machiavellian player, which really you almost are required to do in these big companies now, you need to be Machiavellian. I worked for 3 guys that if I'd have been Machiavellian, I would have ended up taking all their jobs. I just didn't have the patience. Like, I don't want to work for someone dumb. Mm-hmm. I want to work for somebody that knows what the hell they're talking about so I can learn something, right? Because this is a whole career here. You're going to spend business for 50 years. So for me, I was willing to take a haircut or go to zero, which I couldn't afford to do at 26 years old, right? I couldn't. And I think, guys making 60, 50 grand a year, I mean, there's very little for you to risk. Now, when you start making $5 million a year, it's a more challenge because you got a lot of moving pieces that you don't want to walk away from. Going to work there and being greatly challenged. They almost fired me 3 times in the first 9 months because I didn't get their culture. They thought I was really, really arrogant. Okay. And they ended up paying me a tremendous amount of money for being really, really aggressive and arrogant. But some of that had to get culled and controlled and managed because I was young and immature. Today, I would approach that completely different. And my job today as a older guy is to find those really aggressive, spirits, and then also train them that you don't have to have all the friction I had when I was 27. Mm-hmm. So that was a huge pivot point. Find the right team to join. When you're, in my opinion, and I know this is going to offend maybe some millennials, but when you have never done anything other than maybe go to college, which some people should, I wasted 4 years of my life going to college. Absolutely wasted 4 years of my life. Having said that, I probably wouldn't be in the oil and gas business if I didn't have that MBA, the college education. It was just a ticket, right? Mm-hmm. So the pivot point was finding the right people and being willing to be a small fish in a big, big pond and going, dude, I know nothing here. And at the other company, I was the guy. I mean, people had a problem, they brought it to me. So I had to be willing to let my ego walk away from that and go into a humility spot. And that's why most people don't pivot, and they keep grinding on the same deal. So, I moved, I wrote down, I'm a big believer in writing down goals. I've been failing on that in the last 3 years because I'm pretending like I'm too busy. But one of my goals was I'm going to run an energy company in Europe. Now, I have no idea why my brain made me write that down, but I thought it, so I wrote it down. Check this out. 4 months later, the largest energy company in Britain bought 20% of our company. After I wrote that down, I immediately go to my boss and go, hey, I want to go to England and be their advisor. And they, with this accent, and this accent in England with a $70 billion energy company. I mean, these guys wear the white ties and do the chauffeur-driven cars, the whole deal. My boss laughed at me. He's like, we would never do that. You control 30% of all our energy flows here. Like, I was selling all the energy on the West Coast for our company. And then they went around to 600 people and said, hey, who wants to go to England to be British Gas's advisor? Not one American punk. And so sorry to all these guys. And they know who I'm talking about because they left a tremendous amount of money on the table. None of them wanted to leave the machine. Yeah. And Americans, only 30% of Americans have passports. It's so insular, okay? This is a big planet with 8 billion people, and we have 320 million people in the United States. Why wouldn't I want to go to England? Right. Bad education, I'm in London. Come on, that's a cool thing, right? So they ended up shipping me out. Hey, you still ready? I went on a 6-month assignment. I came back 10 years later. Had no intention on that 6-month assignment of ever going back to Houston, Texas. I told the guy that sent me, I said, I will never come back here. Because I knew that American company would no longer have a place for me, right? So like I burned the bridge again. Yep. I told my boss, I will never come back. And more importantly, I told myself. And I went there and I built 2 monster businesses, man. I mean, it was like God was shining down on me. It was unbelievable. 8 people, we made $120 million in 2 years. Crushed it, right? But I had to leave the bird nest. I had to learn how to fly on my own. You know what I found out? Working for really, really bright people, I didn't know how big my wings were. I thought I was a little sparrow. I didn't know I was a predator eagle. Right. And all of a sudden, as I get in some big wind and I start meeting some bigger people, because my bosses weren't there to interfere with the people I was meeting. Like there was only one guy to go meet the CEO of a nuclear power station. It was me, because I was the only guy there. And so I began to learn how to develop business in a very, very cool way in an environment where I didn't know anyone. And it's just good old fashioned go and meet people. Yeah. And which is what I'm doing here. Right. You reached out to me. I said, sure. No resistance. I'm a busy cat. No resistance whatsoever. Yeah, sure, man. Why? Because I want to get more knowledge about your world and the world of what you guys are doing and how I can influence more and more people.
Well, I think it says a lot about you, of the kind of people you hang around. When you came back into the United States, you reached out and texted me, said, man, I'm back. I'm in the United States. Let's figure out a way to, and we're just now getting to know each other, but you're open to that. You're open to possibility. Yeah. And I think that's something a lot of people are not open to. So this goes to my next question about clarity. You have a tremendous clarity, in my opinion, about you. You got a clarity of thought. You got a clarity of action. Where does that clarity come from? Because there's a lot of confusion. I've been teaching confusion this month, and I've been teaching confusion as a problem that has no clear solution or no immediate solution. So where did you get this clarity from? Is it from years and years of practice? Is it from years and years of putting deals together? Talk to me about that.
Well, first off, I think my wife would tell you that she would disagree greatly with you, that she would say, I do not have clarity, that I'm confused most of the time. I think, and you're going to think this is a glib answer, but there's a lot of stuff I just don't even listen to or look at. And so some of my staff would go, like somebody said something about the gold price the other day. I said, hey, it's 1337. And they're like, he always knows every price. I wasn't looking at a screen. I just know. But those data points are important to me for some reason. There is a lot of stuff that I don't focus on. And so I think the clarity comes from my brain is not clustered up with a bunch of BS. And now that comes with a lot of issues. I'm probably not the best manager in the world. I don't look at a lot of details. I have not balanced my checking account in 37 years. Wouldn't have a clue what's in it because I don't care what's in it. I care what I'm generating today. So I also don't spread my bets thin. Like this myth about being diversified, just please explain to me who's made any real money being diversified. Okay, you don't make hedge bets and make tremendous amounts of money. So I have been I'm just a simple guy, man. And my view is if you cannot draw me a picture of an opportunity, you don't know what you're talking about. If I can't explain this to my 8-year-old, I really don't understand my own business. Now, there's value to being really complicated businesses, but every business can get gemmed down to extremely small pieces of data. I've been in the natural gas business, the crude oil business, the power business, which is probably the most complex business in the world, and the credit card industry in 40 years. 4 massive industries, 3 countries, never settling, never being comfortable. Every 2 years, I'm moving somewhere, doing something new. I'm not a genius. I'm not. But I do have the ability to look at things commercially and go, I don't need to read this many documents. I need to read pieces of it and understand the structure of the macro picture. People get into the micro so quickly without understanding what's driving the marketplace.
So you got into the credit card business. Now, when you hear a lot of conflicting advice about what businesses a person should get in, what vehicle should they be in. When you're making that criteria to get into the credit card business or any of these businesses for that matter, what's the criteria you're looking at? Because at 10X, you talked about the future and the expectation of things that are going to happen on a global scale and being ahead of certain things. So talk to the person out there that says, man, I'm looking for the right vehicle and business to get in. How'd you make those decisions?
Well, so when I left the energy business, one, I think that everyone has to understand there is a cycle to everything on the planet. In this universe, there is a cycle, okay? You're in your mid-40s or so, whatever. Your cycle is different than the guy that's sitting next to me at 30 years old. Businesses have a cycle. So if you're sitting here in the energy business and you're saying, I'm going to be in the oil and gas business for the next 50 years, you're going to die probably broke unless you're running those companies. And you're going to be a robot because no industry ever has a super cycle that lasts 40 years. Like the internet is going through a super cycle right now. It will collapse at some point. You can't keep having Amazon with 50 times earnings. I mean, this is ridiculous. You can't go straight up. So one is that everything trades in a cycle. Dollars, gold, natural gas, evolution of people, control structures, governments. The US dollar is 113 years old. 113 years old. It's the second oldest currency in the world. Most of your people don't know what the oldest currency in the world, which is the UK pound or sterling, okay? The average lifespan of a currency, rubles, pesos, those kind of things, is less than 12 years. So why would we as Americans believe the average lifespan over 5,000 years of a currency is 13 years and America is going to go on forever with the US dollar? The US dollar will collapse just by the history of the curve over life. So I look for marketplaces that are in a stage of evolution that allows me to flex my muscles and allows me also to, what are my muscles? My brains and my ability to fund a business, right? So I happen to like extremely large markets, and I really love markets that are managed or controlled by either governments or what's called oligopolies, which is a group of members who are controlling a market, like OPEC,
okay.
the oil petroleum countries, or a duopoly, 2 players, or in the case of like a British gas, a monopoly. Okay. I love going after those big companies because I think by definition, those companies their culture do not suit themselves to really competitive environments. Okay. The other thing, it has to be a really competitive environment, and anything that has finances into it, it's really good for me because I'm really good with math. Not like I'm calculus math, but just typical knowing how to make money.
Yeah.
What's it cost to make a credit card? Also, the industries that I like to go into, payments. You said credit cards. I said I'm in the payments industry.
Yes.
Okay. Payments industry is probably the largest industry in the world. Mm-hmm. Okay. Credit cards alone is $20 trillion. E-commerce is only 8.2% of that.
Okay.
So a lot of people go, man, you have all these stats. How could you possibly go into business and not know the stats? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, if you're doing it with other people's money, totally understand.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you're doing it with your own money, or you're really responsible with other people's money, the beauty behind my education as a commodity trader, trading physical commodities, which is a subtlety that I don't want to get into, but it'd be a really cool interview, is that you have to know everything all the way back from the entire value chain. And very few people that are listening to your show, whether they're auto salesmen or insurance guys, have no clue of the entire value chain. They just see one little piece. I have been really good at really drawing the whole puzzle out. Okay. Like a family. Hey, how did my family get here? Well, some came from Sicily, some came from Germany, right? And you draw the whole lineage and you go, oh, there's culture here.
Yeah.
That's good and bad.
Yeah.
So I love big markets, and there are not many left, man. There are not many left.
Well, that feeds into our next question about you seem like a deal maker. Like when you go to put deals together and you go to really structure, like what's your mindset? Like I can just see you coming into a market. Like I can see you coming into a market like a stone cold killing machine. You're going to find the key players. You're going to get connected to who can make the decisions. Talk to us about about what your philosophy or structure is there.
It's pretty simple. It's dead simple, actually. First off, have a sense that it's deep enough business that you can figure out a place to be. Secondly, burn your bridge. Uh-huh. Like I don't do 3 things at a time. I'm not that smart. I'm not as smart as Grant. Grant runs 5 businesses. I just don't know how to do all that. Mm-hmm. I actually don't want to. That's the truth. I probably could do it. I don't want to. And it's never been successful for me. I'm an all-in bettor. I'm just one of those guys. So first off, big market. Secondly, in very sophisticated markets, my persona is grossly underestimated by everybody that I ever walk into a market. It is the mistake that everyone makes when I enter a market. I asked somebody from a very, very, very large company yesterday. We had 30 or 40 people in from all over the world in a sales training program. And I said, hey, 2 years ago, that big credit card company you used to work for, what did they think of us? And he said, you were a curiosity. That was his answer. Nice British guy. You were a curiosity. You know what? That's what they all do. He's a curious cat. Funny accent. Don't speak real corporate clean. Don't wear wear a t-shirt, not a t-shirt, but yeah. And they underestimate. So it's very, very important to walk in humble. Hey, I'm just learning. I didn't tell anybody that I'd made, a ridiculous amount of money or built a Fortune 50 company. I didn't say any of that. I said, hey, I'm just trying to be here to provide a service. I happen to be in an industry that allowed me to lose this much and gain this much. So how do you do that? You do it one step at a freaking time, okay? And what you do is, I remember I go to a trade show. I go meet people. When I went to England, I had a agenda, a strategy, and the strategy was at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I have a meeting with someone in the industry that I do not know. Okay, I do that over 6 months. Any industry on the world, I will know everyone that's relevant in that industry, and I will also know all their strengths and all their weaknesses in those companies. People do not do that enough. They go see one person in one company, and they go, oh, I met General Electric today. Well, General Electric has about 42 divisions. So you better be willing to go to see all 42 divisions of General Electric. And then I get to pick which deal I do. Why would I want to go do a deal with General Electric when I know one of their companies is fledgling and they actually need me more than the other 40 companies? So I think it's about focus, and then how can you get yourself known? Yeah. And be respected. And that's the first step, okay? So people ask me, what's my agenda in a meeting? My agenda in the meeting is to get to the second meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm not going to try to sell you anything today.
Yeah.
I'm not that set guy. I'm actually a reconnaissance expert. Because I believe in the business that we're going into.
Right.
Business of the future is about intelligence. You keep hearing this big data. I don't care about big data, quite frankly. I care about intelligence, because most of this data is irrelevant. Yeah. I don't have all the data Zuckerberg has, okay? And he's getting ready not to have much of that data either. We'll see usage fall off. See, this is a critical mistake. 12-year-old company got too big for their britches. Watch usage. I mean, they may not delete, but let's see how many posting of photos there are this year. Right. You watch that number go down, his stock will get crushed. Yes. Because he made some fundamental mistakes. I mean, he's not ready for 2 billion users. Right. Much less people talking about him becoming a currency. Like, people are literally going, hey, he should blockchain. Who would trust this guy with their money? Right.
So the reconnaissance piece, the reconnaissance piece, I think is part of your person of interest, but you do get connected to the biggest players ultimately, right? I mean, that's really, when you're doing your reconnaissance, you're gathering information, you're information gathering, you're getting your data points, you're trying to figure out who's making decisions, and you ultimately have a way of getting in there to do that, to articulate your value.
Yeah, but I don't start at the top.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, who's the biggest name in your industry?
I mean, the biggest name in my industry, what I do is, would be people like your brother, Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, all those.
I didn't respond to Tony. I responded to you. I mean, I could have called Tony up. Hey, I want to do an interview. My guys are like, hey, let me get you on to Tony. I don't want to start with Tony. Right. Why would I do that? So, I mean, I'm not going to beg anybody to do anything. Right. So I need it. So, I don't start at the top. When I went to England, I started with a junior guy in British Gas. And then I went and talked to his boss. And then I went and talked to somebody else. And then I understood the game, because they weren't even talking the same language. Right. So I had to do my homework. Yeah. And so then you begin to figure out, okay, who can I bring value to? And sometimes I look for people that have a problem, because people that have a problem tend to move quicker than people that don't have a problem. People that have lots of money, they don't really have needs, right? So not really. So it's a very structural, focused approach to understanding first, what are you doing? We came into the payments industry and never thought that we were going to be here. Okay. I mean, this is, when you go into one of these big businesses, it's all upside. So and you have to change your persona a bit. You can't go talk to Visa the same way you talk to Best Buy. And you can't talk to Amazon the same way. The whole dating approach to go hit Amazon is a different strategy than if I'm trying to talk to Sears, right? Very, very different.
Could you teach that skill set that you have? Can you replicate that with other people? Can you teach the refinement that you have to other people to go in there and have that? Or is that just through years and years of doing what you're doing, the multiple unique backgrounds you've had, the multiple companies?
Well, I think the first people that I went to work for, they taught me a tremendous amount. Yep. And I, not to take anything away from myself. I mean, I was a great pupil. Okay. Though when the student's ready, the teacher appears. Dude, I was a monster student. Okay. So as arrogant or confident or robust as you might think I am, I will tell you when I don't know something. I mean, I'm just, because that's the way I'm going to learn. So the education I got, the second thing was when I got into that culture and I realized I saw my flowers grow, I was like, I'm never going back into the other structures, okay? Most companies are not designed to fit people like me.
Right.
They're not. My partner, my wife, I'm in business with my wife. We have 400 people. We're getting big now. She's like, dude, you cannot be this way anymore. And I'm like, well, then I need to leave because I'm not going to change. It's always worked for me. And when you start introducing all this structure, even if it's 400 or 4,000 people, it's like, oh, what got us here is no longer good. Now, there needs to be some modulation.
Right.
But I think I think burning the bridge, like you keep asking me, hey, what's the key? When you burn the bridge, you just have nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And when you have a weak ego like I do, you don't want to fail.
Yeah.
So, and then I make a lot of pronouncements. I mean, I tell people, hey, I'm going to be a freaking player.
Yeah.
People are going to know me in the credit card industry.
Right.
Well, in the credit card industry, that's quite a statement.
It is.
Because it's a big freaking industry.
Yeah, and you're becoming a person of interest in that market. I mean, that's what you're ultimately.
If you're not a person of interest, why would anybody care about you?
Right. All right. What are you focused on right now? What's the biggest thing you're focused on right now? What's getting all of your attention?
I'm focused on figuring out how I bring my team up to a level to really accelerate my team. I just sent 12 guys down to Grant at the boot camp. Mm-hmm. They said it was phenomenal. I think we sent more people as a company than anybody else there. For me, I should have sent 30. Mm-hmm. I think I'm getting to a level where I'm more mature now, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I have undertrained and undereducated our staff. Mm-hmm. I can't just teach everyone. Right. I need somebody else to teach, and then we will determine by that education who's really taking that data and exploiting it, and who's just treating it like I already know. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest problem is you ask me a question, can you teach it? Dude, I can teach this to 1,000 people. Find me 1,000 people that want to be taught.
Right.
Okay. Because the life I have led, it is not for the faint. I mean, you got to be willing to do stuff that you're always uncomfortable.
Yeah. Fishing
with lards in Scotland that you don't like, lard muckety muck. He's tapping your wife in front of you on the dinner table. And you're looking at it going, really, man? Seriously? Or, being with private equity guys that have more money than God. And, I think when you get around all those experiences, you begin to learn how much you don't know. And for me, that's really been great for me. Because now I can teach other people, my kids, maybe one day, hey, this is how you do this.
So when you think about this, so the future that you're gunning for, okay, this is what you're doing currently, trying to train the people up, get them coached up, multiply that. Your future that you're trying to drive toward, that you're trying to manifest, is what?
So when I get into a business, one thing that I always make a decision of is I am going to be the cat daddy. I'm not going to be the second cat daddy. I'm not going to be the kitty cat. I'm not taking a little piece. I am going to be a thought leader in this space, or I don't want to play. It's not going to hold my interest.
Right.
So when my wife came up with this idea, I didn't understand it. I poo-pooed all over it. And I'm a very critical guy. She'll tell you, dude, the guy says, no, I don't like that idea. This is the way traders think, though. Uh-huh. Traders puke on everything. No, that's not a trade. That's not a trade. So there was something I was missing in the understanding, and there was something missing in her ability to convey the message to me in the right way. I'll still maintain she didn't convey the message properly. But when I saw the first invoice, it got my attention because it had 2 more zeros on it. I was like, whoa, that's interesting. And then I began to understand the math. And I'm like, hey, this is a great business. We then decided, because we had 2 competitors, 2 people that had really abused us, people that had provided the service that we provided today, they abused us. And I realized they don't actually know what they're doing. And one thing trading taught me was if you haven't sold something, if you haven't done something, you are a spectator. Okay, you support a bunch of athletes, How many people in your lifetime have said, oh, I could have hit that 100-mile-an-hour fastball from third base, right? Third base, seat 10A. I could have hit that. Really? Go down there and take it in the face, man. And oh, wow, it went by. So it looks completely different. So one thing I know, if I haven't done it, I actually don't know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
In any field, okay? Like my guy, we do chargebacks. We do chargebacks we do millions of chargeback cases, which is a illegitimate refund initiated by a bank because the consumer bought something on e-commerce. Mm-hmm. So we look at this, and I look at all my team and go, hey, did you file a chargeback? And they're like, what? I mean, it's not nice to file a chargeback. Well, how can you know what we're doing if you haven't filed a chargeback?
Right.
How can you serve your client if you didn't buy his product?
Right.
If clients come to us, I buy their product, man. Pair of glasses from the glass company, I bought it to see their whole process. Right. And now I can have a real life experience with them. It's not a theoretical event.
Right.
To answer your question, what am I really focused on? I'm focused on not to do the 10X thing, but we're at a pivot point in our business where we are getting ready to absolutely explode. And now I have to make sure that the container we built can take the orbit where we're going. Because that's the problem. See, people get into a vehicle. I mean, think about a rocket, a SpaceX rocket. The whole rocket doesn't go into orbit. They jettison millions of pounds of material and cost so that machine can keep going right into orbit, because it has to operate at a different level. And I think that's true of companies also. Look at General Electric. General Electric is going to go down. It got so big. I mean, it is Enron 3.0. It should have gone down in Enron. I mean, quite frankly, I know a lot about that whole world, but GE and Enron were the same companies. GE just got bailed out. That's the only difference. And then they survived 08. They will not survive the next one. And my point of the story is there's a 100-year-old company. They've missed their buy-sell date.
Yeah.
Okay. Their cycle is done. Their culture and their legacy is so heavily weighted in the past, they can't pivot. And this is a massive, massive challenge and a tremendous opportunity for the guys listening to you right now. I mean, a massive opportunity. If you don't have a legacy position, you should be happy. Okay, you shouldn't be going, oh, wow, I want a job with XYZ retailer. You should be going, man, everybody's falling away. What's the opportunity for me?
Yeah, nice.
Right? So I love disruption and I love change. Question is, am I disrupting or am I riding the disruption? And where's all the value? Is the value in creating the disruption, or is it actually in enjoying the disruption?
Yeah, that's good, man. Well, listen, I've got several strong points. Every time I listen to you, I get a lot of things. You got a deep well of stuff. Deep well. Give me your definition of a person of interest. Like, you're studying people. You know, you're studying people who like my definition of a person of interest is, you know, like I said, they're living a fascinating life. They're doing fascinating things. They're most likely making fascinating money. They're creating fascinating products and services in the world. What's your definition of a POI?
Well, I think you're a person of interest.
Thank you.
I think, but look, I'm going to put a waiver out here, okay? Because I don't know how many people listen to you. Person of interest does not mean that I like them.
That's right.
Okay? Person of interest does not mean that I admire them. Okay, I am only interested in respect and admiration. Once you pass the respect and admiration with me, I don't care how much money you make. Like I have a housekeeper named Bobby who's worked for me for 12 years. She makes $12, $15 an hour before I bonus her at the end of the year. I respect, admire, and love her to death. She doesn't make any money for me. I mean, right? I mean, it's not. But I love her because I admire and respect her. So it has to. Now, Elon Musk, person of interest. I think two of Elon Musk's businesses will completely go into default. That doesn't mean that I don't think he's a person of interest. He will go down as a real thought leader.
Yeah.
You know, Donald Trump, dude. I mean, how can you say that guy?
Right.
Putin, Michelangelo. I mean, I think Michelangelo is a great story for all of us. If you haven't read the story of Michelangelo, you should really read it, okay? Because most people don't know this about me, but I love art. And I actually like to do art. And you wouldn't see that in my persona. You'd say, man, the guy likes guns, but he doesn't like art. I love art.
Yeah.
The story of Michelangelo fits me because he had no teachers. None. He worked for an apprentice. I mean, but no formal education. And we're still talking about this cat. Yeah. And we could have easily missed him too. If he'd have been born in Romania, we wouldn't even hear about Michelangelo. So he got a little lucky. Mm-hmm. Just a little sidestep, person of interest or a concept of interest. Mm-hmm. If you think Michelangelo is a hot cat, cool cat, so this is a subject matter interest, right? In the next 3 years, 8 billion people are getting ready to get connected to the World Wide Web. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many geniuses we're getting ready to discover that have been living in third world countries like Michelangelo, and because they weren't connected to society, we never discovered who they were? Dude, the amount of people that we're getting ready to meet, the ideas are going to be astronomical, okay? And in that, there is going to be a shitload of disruption and losses. Yeah. So it's both probably the most dangerous times and the most exciting times. Yeah. Who else is a person of interest? Again, I don't say that I necessarily rub off these people.
Sure.
I would invite Donald Trump into my home, by the way. I would allow Donald Trump and anybody in his family stay in my house. Compared to the other presidents we've had in the last 15 years, not one of them would make it through the door of my front house. Okay. So there's no respect there. George Bush, interest, not a lot of respect. Admiration, Clinton, and so on and so on.
All right, final question for you. And thank you for this time today. I got a lot of good. I love the concept of interest, organization of interest. Great. There's obviously been a lot of things that you've learned from your brother. Your brother's learned from you. You both have different skill sets. What's the biggest thing you think you've learned from your brother? And what do you think the biggest thing is he's learned from you? Because you and your brother are dynamic. I mean, you're very dynamic in your own way. What do you think you've learned from him and vice versa?
Yeah, I mean, and you can see the more time you spend with us, you realize, hey, these are really different creatures, right? Mm-hmm. Very similar beings, but really different creatures in our approach. I think I'm actually learning more from Grant today in the last 2 years than I've ever learned from. I think actually Grant has tapped into something that, I think Mark Cuban's an interesting guy, but I think he's a little wonky when it comes to bashing Trump because, in all fairness, had Mark Cuban seen this opportunity, he would be president of the United States today, but he didn't. And shame on him for not looking at Donald Trump and going, dude, you saw the gap. Mm-hmm. Someone asked me one day, what do you really do for a living? I explain it very simply. I fill gaps. Mm-hmm. In order to fill a gap, you have to identify there is a gap first. Identify it, define it, and then go fill it. Or, better yet, create the damn gap. Yeah. If you create the gap, then you're the only guy with the key to the solution. Mm. So I have learned so much, back to your question, from Grant. For me, Grant probably won't tell you this, but I have been telling him for probably 2 decades, dude, you have to get out of the automobile industry. Mm-hmm. Not get out of it, but you have to get out of being so comfortable in one little, you're the big fish. You have to go wide. And he's really, really, really done that now. Yeah. And what he's doing, like, I don't like the consumer business model. Mm-hmm. But what he is doing is actually making me rethink my dislike for the consumption model, which is, it's just the law of big numbers, okay? 1995, 2 million times a month is a heck of a lot more than $300, 200 times a year. I mean, it's just a law of large numbers. And he's set up perfectly. Now, here's a good example. Grant would have gotten destroyed had he done a TV show on NBC. Instead, he said, you know what? I'm not going to put up with any of this shit. I'm going to do it myself so I can be my own personality. Yeah. I think we're seeing that a lot now in the world, that people are saying, I want unique. Yes. So his unique stuff, his willingness to push, his willingness to stick a camera in his face and do this stuff. Like, I'm not as good at this. Like, Grant has always wanted to run his own church, man. I mean, I told Grant, I said, dude, you've always wanted to run your own, have a cult. Yeah. And this is what he's doing. So he is fulfilling his entire life dream of wanting to be the cult guy. And I think that's good. I mean, we are all in cults, whether we like it or not. You can abuse the word if you want, but we love cults, okay? I wish I would have been in the military. That is a cult. Yeah. Okay? U.S. Army, U.S. military, U.S. Navy are cults. Right. And I don't mean that as a bad, bad word. I mean it like a team. Like group.
Tribe, like a team of people. Yeah.
A tribe.
Yeah.
Grant, I don't know what Grant's learned from me, man. I mean, I think that, I think probably the thing that Grant's learned from me, I don't know that he's learned it, but like he and I have a very different approach to money. Mm-hmm. Like money, you hear Grant talk a lot about money. I don't think I've used the word once on this show. It's not my motivator.
Right.
I have a lot of it. I mean, I can do whatever I want to do most of the time within reason. I mean, I'm not taking space rockets to space, but it's just not my main driver. And I don't get hooked up on it. I spend money ridiculously. I let go of money, just like easy. It doesn't really bug me. And hopefully, I think he has learned some of that holding on to it doesn't help. But I'm not, you'd have to ask him, man. I'm not sure that I'm, qualified to say what he's learned from me.
Sure.
I think traveling, like he didn't do any of that. And the thing I'm probably most proud of is to be able to go into 5 industries and really, really do something significant in those industries it's actually what I wanted to show to myself was that, hey, was this lucky?
Yeah.
The first one's lucky, maybe the second one's lucky. You do it 3, 4, 5, 6 times in different countries and different businesses. And you're like, hey, there's a knack here somewhere. Not sure what it is, but I just keep doing it over and over. And I think, surrounding yourself with really, really, really great people. I think he and I both learned each other from, because he and I, our career path has been drafting. He talks about that. Like sometimes he'll be ahead for 3 or 4 years. In the story he doesn't tell, I made a hell of a lot more money than he did before he was 35.
Yeah.
I mean, I was crushing it. Yeah. And he was grinding it out on his own. He's like, dude, I got a $23 million check one day. I mean, just ridiculous stuff, right? So, but that's the great story, right? The path does not require one road,
right?
Except dedication.
Yeah.
You have to be dedicated to the path, whether it's a winding path, a 70-year path, a 2-year path. Just be dedicated, man. Be all in, and almost like I'm going to die if this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I don't see very many people dying when shit hits the fan, man. It's amazing what a human being can do.
Well, listen, I want to thank you for a fascinating interview. I think you're an interesting, very interesting cat. I've always thought that, man. And when I came back from 10X, I told my buddies, I said, man, I'm going to interview Gary Cardone because I think he's an interesting dude. He's living an interesting life. He's done a lot of – today you gave me some inspiration, some things I need to do better. I need to get out a little bit more and push harder. I think it's a good message that people need to hear. I do believe you're a big time person of interest, and thank you for reaching out, connected to me, and I look forward to doing some more things with you, man.
Yeah, I'd love to. If you're ever in Tampa, look me up, okay? Or London. I'm in London most of the time, so look me up.
You got it, brother. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Ciao.
Have a great day.
Okay, thank you.